Why are so many Protestants converting to Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, specifically in the United States? There are droves of Protestant Christians leaving Protestantism and evangelicalism and coming over to Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. So, what gives? What's going on? Why is this happening? Okay. I have a few takes on this. I have some opinions. I have some experience. I am a convert from Protestantism. So I can tell you, coming from that side and now being on this side, why this is happening. Okay. So, about, oh gosh, 11 or 12 days ago, I put out a poll on which topic you guys would like me to talk about. And I got 1.3 thousand votes. That's pretty good. I only had like 7,000 subscribers at the time. And notice two were tied, deadlocked. So why am I not Eastern Orthodoxy? I just did a video on that. It's not doing too well. I don't, whatever. And then why so many Protestants are converting to Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. So I'm doing this for you guys because you voted 33% out of 1.3 thousand votes. Okay. So let me tell you this. Um, I think a lot of it has to do with marriage and divorce. So, for instance, as you know, and this has been going on since the time of the apostles and our Lord, people will marry into Catholicism, right? And convert through marriage because their spouse is Catholic or Eastern Orthodox, right? So I have a friend, he or she met a Catholic. They got married, but before they got married, this friend of mine went through RCIA twice, right? Twice. Some people go 3 times. Were those balloons? Did you guys see that? Some people go through RCIA 3 times just to, get that firm conviction in their conscience. Nonetheless, marriage, it's still happening. It's still prominent. That's why a lot of people are going from evangelicalism and Protestantism into the apostolic churches. Now, divorce. This is a biggie, right? So as you know, in the United States, we have a problem, and we've had a problem probably since 1950s, 60s with divorce. And I think the national average, I don't know what it is right now, but it always teetered around 50%. So basically, you have a 1 in 2 shot of making it, right? That's just general, okay? I'm not looking at any demographics, just general, okay? Well, if you look at Christianity, different churches, denominations, and sects and everything like that in the United States, where is divorce more prevalent, more common, more frequent, right? Well, it's not in Catholicism and it's not in Eastern Orthodoxy for various reasons. Now, that's not to say that there is not divorce going on within Catholicism and Orthodoxy. Okay, it happens. It's unfortunate. However, I think if I am correct, in evangelicalism, Protestantism, it's like 70%, 70 to 75%. Okay, so people are getting divorced. Well, what does that do? That's a scandal. That scandalizes people, right? You belong to evangelicalism or Protestantism, and people are just getting divorced left and right when our blessed Lord said that you cannot get divorced. It's a grave sin and it could become mortal, but it is still nonetheless a grave sin to divorce and especially to remarry if your original marriage was valid. Okay. So marriage and divorce, right? Those elements. I think that has a lot to do with it. It's not the only thing, but we can't forget that that's where a lot of conversions do come from. And that's where Protestants and evangelicals convert to Catholicism and Orthodoxy. Now, you obviously have some sociological elements going on, okay, and cultural elements going on. I would say in the past, I know this is a weird range, but like 10 to 30 years, right? Because you got to remember, before the internet, social media, EWTN and all these different outlets, Orthodox, but mostly Catholic media outlets, journalists, whatever, people didn't really have readily available access to the information that they would need to research Catholicism and or Orthodoxy. So, for instance, in my personal experience as a Protestant, I was feeling a pull towards Catholicism for many reasons, but I still had to do the research. So it wasn't just like I woke up one day and the Holy Spirit whispered in my ear, hey, I think you should be Catholic. No, it took many, many years. But nonetheless, I still researched it like my life depended on it. And I researched it in the most unbiased way without anyone telling me what to do, how to read this, how to interpret that, right? It was all independent research. So my conscience and my research. Well, I have the internet. I have EWTN. I have relevant radio. I have YouTubers, apologists and theologians, Trent Horn and Jimmy Akin and, the list, I could list, about 20 of them. But nonetheless, that is helping people, especially in the Gen Z, Gen X ish generations, converting. I mean, they're inundated and they're just saturated with internet, online, social media. And so when you're on TikTok and you see something to do with Orthodoxy or Catholicism and you're, I don't know, 17, 20, 23, 25, it's going to have an effect and it's going to be different than, say, like 10 to 30 years ago when this wasn't as prevalent. And then I think, yeah, the evangelization, I don't know about Orthodox evangelization, but I can tell you with Catholic evangelization, it's huge in the United States, right? It's everywhere. It's almost like you can't escape it. And again, I would argue, this is just me, that it's been like this for the last 10 to 15 years. Okay, so you have YouTube coming up and all these TikTok and Instagram and you've had EWTN for a while, and the radio, but no one really listens to the radio anymore. So that's where people are going to hear stuff. Kind of a funny story. I've heard on multiple occasions. So those bumper stickers with the Catholic radio and the station. So listen Catholic radio, 1450 FM or AM or whatever, whatever. There have been stories where people have actually looked at those bumper stickers on the road and they've turned their dial to that station, Catholic radio station, and that started an entire journey, which ended up in a conversion to the Catholic Church. I need to get a bumper sticker because you think it's trivial and you think like bumper stickers are lame. Who's going to look at this and actually, it happens. It absolutely happens, right? So, yeah, I also think a lot of people are kind of disillusioned, with Protestantism. They're not as naive. I mean, how can we compare and contrast, generation to generation? But from personal experience, you know, we're we're getting smarter when it comes to, hey, I'm going to look this up and see if this is really true instead of just taking someone's word for it, right? Just out of whole cloth. So, in my personal experience, I started to think for myself and to actually research myself, okay? And not just let someone in a classroom or in my home, not that that's bad, just indoctrinate me and tell me how reality is. And this is, no, I mean, yeah, I think people are realizing that Christianity isn't just 500 years old and that there's a lot more to it. However, I think also people, and this is of all generations, for in the Protestant circles and in the evangelical circles, they're thirsting and hungering for um, Christianity that's more robust, more traditional, more liturgical, more worship oriented, right? Instead of just basically going to I mean, I wasn't an evangelical, but nonetheless, when I was a Lutheran, you go to the service. What's the apex of the service? It's not the liturgy of the Eucharist. We don't have that. It's the 45-minute sermon. Okay, a little hyperbole, but it's a long sermon. That's what you go to church for, right? Well, you kind of wonder in your conscience, is this worship? Isn't there more to this, right? Well, in the evangelical circles, I can tell you, because I have some friends that are evangelicals, and they go to pretty much like a rock concert. And it's, instruments and light lasers and light shows and, I don't know, 500-inch screens, and they put 80 to $200,000 into the, sensational equipment and all that stuff. And yeah, and I think people are realizing like I feel like I leave feeling empty, or maybe God, my relationship with God and how I worship Him isn't based solely on senses, like that sensual gratification, right? That's why you go to a rock concert or you go to an opera, that entertainment aspect, because worship's not entertainment. It just isn't. Okay. Um, what else? Well, it's interesting. So I only can speak on the Catholicism part, at least personally, firsthand experience, not on the Orthodox part. However, there was an article that was put out by the New York Post, and it interviewed Father Josiah Trenum, Jordan Peterson, and then like 3 to 5 young converts from Protestantism to Eastern Orthodoxy, and they gave why they left and why they joined Eastern Orthodoxy. And so I just want to share my screen and show you this article. Uh, Again, it's the New York Post, and it was just put out a month ago, so December 4th of 2024. And Gavin Ortland did a video on this. This is actually where I got this article, was from Gavin Ortland's YouTube channel. But here's what's interesting. So this is what Father Trenum says. So, quote, he points to the fact that the mass majority of attendees at most Christian churches are female, and many services are accordingly dominated by emotional songs, swaying, uplifted hands, and eyes closed in ecstasy, end quote. Okay, so that goes back to what I was saying about the sensual aspect and of the entertainment. Now, what he's saying is he's actually kind of taking it further and saying, well, worship isn't based on emotion. Okay. Now, he's going to correlate that with feminism. I would be careful about that. Okay. I get what he's saying. I don't necessarily disagree with it. Obviously, women are more emotional, but I still, he's, there's some misogynistic overtones here that, again, I'm not judging him. But yeah, anyways, but you can see that people like they're getting, I don't know, fed up or not fed because of this dynamic of entertainment that is based solely on emotionalism. Emotional songs, swaying, uplifted hands, and eyes closed in ecstasy. So I know people personally in Protestantism, conservative liturgical Protestantism. So when I say that, I mean like Anglicanism, Lutheranism, you get the idea. It's more liturgical, right? They left that because they weren't getting anything out of it emotionally, right? They didn't like, you go and you listen to a sermon and you're just like, this is the most boring thing ever in my life, right? In a sense, I can relate. In a sense, I can understand that, because worship isn't just passivity on the layman. Okay. There should be an element of sacrifice that goes on there. Okay. Not just like, I'm going to sit here and listen to a rock concert, even though they're singing about Jesus Christ and whatnot. But yeah, so they left these mainline Protestant denominations and became non-denominational evangelical, mega churches. They joined those. And if you've ever been to one, it's kind of different than a Catholic or Orthodox uh, mass and divine service. But just a few other things that I wanted to highlight. So this was a 17-year-old from Toronto, and he says feminized worship is what pushed him to explore Orthodoxy. Feminized. I think what they're getting at is it's just basically pure emotion, or maybe you have a bigger push of women being ordained, women pastors, ministers and stuff like that. So there's that element of feminization in clergy, if you clergy. And then here, Christianity in North America has become extremely emotional. Going to evangelical worship services, I found it to be like emotionally driven rock concerts with the lifting up of the hands. So you see what's going on here. And then also down here, another guy says modern Christianity, I mean, gosh, what does that even mean, really? I kind of know what it means, but has become very watered down. People go to church on Sunday, they sing a few songs, they listen to an hour-long sermon that seems more like a TED Talk, and they go home and they just go on with their lives. I can relate to that. So I come from a more liturgical, faith-based, confessional Protestant denomination. It was not a TED Talk, but I would say it was more like of a Bible study, just like a 30 to 40-minute Bible study. And then you got a hymn preceding it and a hymn at the end of the service. And so it was like a hymn sandwich. That's Jimmy Aiken there. Here, there was one other thing I wanted to. Oh, another thing. So culturally, right? And this goes for Protestantism. This goes for everything. But in the United States, culturally, in the West, we're having some issues with um, ideologies. Ideology. Ideology is like the worst thing you could have, especially when it intersects with the religion sphere, right? So what do I mean? So, for instance, you will see a lot of evangelical and Protestant denominations that will have pride flags, Black Lives Matter, et cetera, et cetera. And what they're wanting or thinking or trying to do is they're trying to be more inclusive, like our blessed Lord was inclusive by sitting with tax collectors and prostitutes, right? But here's the thing. Any Orthodox church or Catholic church would accept any person of any sexual orientation or socioeconomic status, right? Gender, all that stuff. The problem is when you start making it into an ideology where you promote it, right? So you have the pride flag on your church, you have the Black Lives flag or whatever on your church, and say all are welcome here. And it even becomes more of a problem when you say you have a pastor in a Protestant denomination actually embracing the ideology insofar as it comes to like pushing it on people outside of their circle, right? That's what makes it an ideology. That's what makes it harmful, is when you actually like force people to condone and come down to your level and say, no, you got to call me this, you got to call me that, you got to do this, you got to do that. That's where it becomes a problem. I think people are getting sick of that and they want to leave that and going to, um, yeah, apostolic churches. Here's another thing. Everything's changing. This dude, I can't remember. Everything's changing. Protestant churches are changing. The Catholic Church is changing. The culture is changing. The government is changing. Whoa, we had to just slip that Catholic Church is changing under there. Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox. There are three words that they just loathe and abhor. It's taboo. You don't say it out loud. Change, development, evolution, any type of progress, change, development, anything is just no bueno in Protestant, in Orthodoxy, right? You cannot have it. Everything stopped at the Seventh Ecumenical Council, and we've been static since then for 1,200 years. Just static, stagnant, still, just cult, just tradition, 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 right? Nothing changes in the deposit of faith. And it's like the Catholic Church is changing. Oh, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Why? Because the Catholic Church doesn't change. The church, in her dogmas, in the revelation that she has received, doesn't change. The transmission, the modes of transmission haven't changed. What happens is the understanding of those doctrines and dogmas gets deeply or more deeply penetrated and understood, because we have to fight off things that come up and almost make us seem like we're changing insofar as we're developing our doctrine. So you have heresy coming up, right? Protestantism, you have the Reformation, and then you have the Council of Trent. And did we change by affirming purgatory? Did we change by dogmatizing the canon of the Bible? Did we change by dogmatizing justification? I mean, in the most thorough and orthodox way possible? No. When you have challenges to your dogmas and to your church, you penetrate that which has been received, that which doesn't change. And so, like, it blossoms, it flowers, right? Okay. I see that change thing, and I can't, it's no bueno. Two things, and then we're done. So I didn't read the whole article, but they're basically pitting femininity with masculinity. So they're basically saying evangelicalism, that's all feminine. That's all woman-based, emotional based, blah, 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 blah. So if you want to be a man, right? And if you want true church, true liturgy, true tradition, and you want to be masculine and be a tough guy, come to Orthodoxy, because, all that other stuff is sissy feminism. Okay, real quick. I'm going to actually change my screen here real quick. There is such a thing as radical, inordinate, unchaste feminism, right? We all know that. Okay? We all know that. And that's not good. That's not good. But to throw the word feminine around, like a rag doll, meaning that, it's almost like has that misogynistic element to it, right? Because you got to understand, right? The church is a mother, not a father. Okay? I know you all know that. You know what I mean? The church is we are the bride. We not only are we do we have Mother Church, we are the bride. Okay? That's feminine written all over it. Not only that, but Mary and her maternal dimension precedes anything Petrine or apostolic or masculine. Mary. Yes, Mary. She is the mother of God. She's the mother of the church. And that Mary is the most radically feminine in the most holy kind of way, right? She completes, right? And brings to fruition that which God created women to be. So when you have all these, throwing around all these feminine, like, oh, it's too feminine, too women based, it's too sissy, all that stuff. Be more masculine, where all these young men want to be just, really butch and, chopping down trees and I want to go to an Orthodox church and just be a man, smoke cigars. And it's just like, come on. We have how many female saints, and we have female doctors of the church. Orthodoxy, you think they have female? I don't know. So I don't want to. I don't want to. But yeah, I just, oh my gosh, just again, and I don't know the context and the tone. This is an article, right? But got to be careful when you're talking about, religion and femininity. You got to be careful. Okay? I wouldn't use that word. I wouldn't throw that around like it's like we're pitting men against women when it comes to worship. Anyways, the last thing I want to say. You want my personal opinion on why people are converting to Eastern Orthodoxy from Protestantism, and I will even say Catholicism? I'll tell you right now, this is probably the biggest reason. In the United States, we have a huge, huge problem, and it needs to be squashed ASAP, like right away. And that's the stark contempt for Pope Francis. We have theologians and apologists publicly, where millions of people are going to watch and listen, slandering him, calling him a heretic, an apostate, a communist, a Marxist. And some of these guys are saying that Vatican II was heresy. Yet they still remain in the jurisdiction in the fold of the Catholic Church. They still go to Mass every Sunday. What hypocrisy. So when you have Protestants and Protestants and even Catholics buying into what they're selling and saying, they're going to Eastern Orthodoxy. And they say it's because of Pope Francis. I can't stand Pope Francis. I've had enough of Pope Francis. I'm done with Pope Francis. I'm going to Eastern Orthodoxy. Oh my gosh. I do not want to be in some of these people's shoes on the last day. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I can't, like, people, some people have addressed it. Some people have just brushed it under the rug, swept it under the rug. It's the biggest problem in the United States. And really, honestly, it comes from the divisiveness of the political culture in the United States. They put the religion first, and then they're thinking, oh my gosh, Pope Francis, communist. He's a communist. Why? Because an article said so. Because this YouTube channel said so. Because this theologian said to, and they don't have the critical thinking skills and the originality to actually do their homework and read Pope Francis's works and realize that he's one of the most orthodox theologians that we have in the world today, and that he said nothing even remotely that touches on the fringes of heresy. So, I'm not going to say names, but there was, right, a Protestant who was looking into Catholicism, right? He wanted to convert to Catholicism. And then he happened to come across somebody's channel. I'm not going to say who. And this person, gosh, like, I got to be very subtle and discreet. And so you guys, okay. This person, by the way he or she was talking about Pope Francis and Vatican II, had this Protestant rethink his position on converting to Catholicism, and actually wound up in Eastern Orthodoxy because of this Catholic apologist slash theologian, whoever this person is. And I'm sure that's not the only one. So if you want my personal opinion, why are people going to the EO? It's because of this. I can't even say it. Just all the lies, all the propaganda, all the contempt and slander against Pope Francis. And it's been all over. It's been in public. Oh my gosh, people, you're going to hurt. I'm sorry. I'm, I'm not pointing my finger at anyone. I mean, I'll jam the log into my own eye and say, I'm going to hurt, whatever. But my gosh, people don't realize what they're doing when they're talking like this about the Holy Father in public and what it does to souls. Because what did Jesus Christ say when it came to scandal, right? What did he say? It would be better if that person had a millstone hung around his neck, right? Than to lead people astray. I will say that there's another issue that why people are actually maybe leaving both Protestantism and Catholicism and going to Eastern Orthodoxy, and that would be the priest scandals in the last, well, 20 to 30. I mean, when do they get unearthed, right? Because they can go so far back. But I would say in the last 20, 25 years, right? So that rate in of itself, and that's on us. That's on us. Woe to whom the scandal comes through, not really even the scandal itself. But yeah, I mean, how many people left Protestantism? I'm sorry, Catholicism rather, to join the EO because of the scandals. I'm sure it's happened, right? And if you're a Protestant and you're trying, oh, I can't choose. Well, gosh, I mean, you have this pervasive problem within Catholicism of priests not being able to restrain their lower appetites, right? I mean, you don't necessarily see that as prevalent in the Eastern Orthodox as much. I know it's a little apples to oranges based on, population and all that stuff. So that's why I think people, Protestants and others, are converting to Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. Oh my gosh, I forgot the most important part, and then I'm done, I promise. This will be under an hour. This is more to do with Catholicism than EO. Maybe it's Eastern Orthodoxy, but why are Protestants converting to Catholicism? Our Lady said at Fatima that in the end, her immaculate heart will triumph. Men and women's hearts are being triumphed by our Blessed Mother. And it's because of her and her love and her intercession and her merits that people are being triumphed and being led to the Catholic Church. To me, that's the number one reason why anybody's converting to Catholicism, right? Our Lady of Fatima. All my children are named after the children of Fatima. So, there you go. Like, subscribe, share, comment. I hope you guys were edified, okay? But that's all I got for today. So, praise be Jesus and Mary. And seriously, just pray. Pray about it. If you have problems with Pope Francis, pray. Just zip it. You don't need to go public. Just zip it. Get a spiritual director, a good one, okay? And zip it. Do your pious reading. Don't just go to these articles and YouTube channels like mine. All right. Love you guys.